Hello, friends. I learned somebody is asking, why would a king die? And honestly, I want to tell you, it's a very good question. Because when you imagine the absurdity of it, the ridiculity of it, indeed, why would a king die? But I want to invite you to come with me. Maybe let's just imagine it out through an illustration. I want you to imagine in an African setting somewhere, a kingdom where there was this great king, so powerful, who had a huge kingdom to control. But this man had a problem for so many years. He didn't have a male child. And the law of the kingdom in terms of succession was that it will only be handed over to a male child. He sought for a male child. He pleaded with heaven and earth for a male child. Eventually, one of those days, the cry rang out in the maternity quarters. One of the queens had given birth to a male child. Imagine the ceremony. Imagine the pomp. Imagine the joy, the festivities that followed. He trained up this boy. He watched the boy from infancy into adolescence. He taught the boy hunting, taught him fishing, taught him mannerism, courtesy, kingdom attitude. He taught him how to be a prince. He was lining the boy up to take over the throne. And everybody was seeing it. Everybody was in agreement that this good king was eventually going to have a successor. He loved the boy. It was so evident. But the kingdom also had an issue. They were plagued by thieves. So many people from within the kingdom were stealing. Many of the members of the community and the elders brought complaints that the rate of theft within the community had gone to a ridiculous level. It was like a plague. And they were asking, what do we do to stop it? And the king felt, we need to do something so drastic. We need to make a law that is so potent that it will deter anybody, even from that inclination. And eventually, in agreement and in concert, there was this law that was promulgated, that if anybody was found in that kingdom stealing, guess what? His hand will be chopped off. The right hand will be chopped off. And everybody agreed with it. So the town crier went round and made the announcement that in this kingdom henceforth, if anybody was found in the act of stealing and convicted with all evidence, the right hand will be chopped off from the arm. And for so many years, there was peace in the kingdom. Of course, the thieves had to rethink, and those acts of stealing appeared to have been abated. But one day, there was a cry in the palace. And what was it about? The king had just declared that he was missing his royal bracelet. The bracelet could not be found anywhere. They searched in the inner chamber. They searched in the queen's quarters. Maybe he left it there. They searched everywhere. It couldn't be found. It was obvious. He said, no, he left it near the throne. Somebody had taken the bracelet. And somebody, after searching everywhere, they said, it must be here. And somebody suggested, let's check the room of the prince. It took some courage to make that suggestion. But they still went and searched the room of the prince. Lo and behold, they found it under his bed. The royal bracelet. They dragged the king, the prince, and asked him, what were you doing with it? And he was stammering. Did you take the king's bracelet? He said, yes. And he said, Daddy, I'm sorry. And the father was asking, why would you do that? The elders were wailing. They were not wailing at the fact that the prince stole the bracelet. No, they were wailing in view of the fact that a decree had been made saying that anybody that was found stealing in the kingdom, his right hand would be chopped off. So the prince would have his right hand chopped off. So why the wailing? They were not just wailing that the king will have the prince will have his right hand chopped off. But the law of the kingdom was that at the coronation of a king, a left-handed man can never rule, because you must take the scepter with the right hand. So if his right hand will be chopped off, where are we going to get a king to succeed this one? it was really a time of wailing. And the king said, well, the law has been made. He had an option of reversing the law, of cancelling the law. But if he had done that, he would have perverted justice. He would have shown his lack of integrity. And you also needed to balance with allowing his son's hand to be chopped off. And it would have looked like an uncaring father. So he wondered, what would he do? And he called the elders, and they went into council. He came out and announced and said, let the law have its way. Tomorrow, in the afternoon, when the sun is at its zenith, the right hand of the thief will be chopped off. And everybody wailed and left. The next day, they gathered. The king was seated on his throne. The community gathered. The executioners were there. And they brought the little boy. When the boy was brought, they asked him again, did you do this? He said, yes. Then the executioner announced, as the whole community wailed, the executioner announced and said, whereas that is the law that has been made in this kingdom, whereas the prince was the thief and he has been found guilty of this act, whereas we must maintain this law in this kingdom, his right hand is going to be chopped off. Bring him forward. So they brought the king. And as the executioner raised the axe to chop off the hand, he now made another announcement. He said, whereas the father of the prince, the king himself, had declared that he was willing to take the punishment of his son, earlier this morning, his right hand had been chopped off. We declare this boy innocent and free of that crime. And the crowd wailed as the king stood up and showed the stump of his arm without his hand. His hand had been chopped off earlier that day. There was mixed wailing. Some were wailing for the king. Some were wailing for the boy. Some were screaming. In the midst of that noise, the little boy went to the father and said, Daddy, why? Why would you have your hand chopped? And the father said, for love and for justice. I love you so much, and I know for you to be the king, you need your right hand to hold the scepter. And for justice, I will not want this law broken. I am a father. I am a king, and I will maintain justice. So you are asking, why would a king die? Why would Jesus come to die? He took up perfect humanity. But Isaiah chapter 53 actually said in verse 6, we all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, and the Lord had laid on him the iniquity of us all. For all of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And what is the punishment? For the soul that sinneth shall die. But for love, he came and he took up our perfect humanity. He went through the agony of crucifixion, the Roman crucifixion, 3 hours of exposure in the sun, with dehydration, with all those things that you know, you have the medical facts. And eventually, he declared, it is finished. What did he mean by that? That the totality of the punishment has been paid. That I, God, the Maker, have taken the place of you, unrepentant man, and I've paid it in full. I've paid the price in full. So what would you say will be the reasons? Of course, 2 things. Love and justice. And I ask today, this love that is so evident across the sky, this love that has made once a guilty sinner to be free, to embrace and to run and to have a hope of eternity, I ask you, how would you want to respond to this love? Would it not be more absurd that you didn't respond to this love? Would it not be more ridiculous that you knew of this love and didn't respond to it? My friend, I invite you to respond to this love. Jesus loves you. And when you respond to this love, you have a hope that transcends eternity. You have justice. You have love that conquers judgment. I invite you to respond to this love. Thank you.